Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
Friday on the SportsIQ. So glad you are here with us. We are getting ready for another big college football weekend. Oh, we cannot wait. And boy, we have got a loaded show for you today. We've got the great Tony Barnhart, decades covering college football. You've seen him on ESPN, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's been everywhere. He's got a book he's working on for next year. He's going to join us talking about the Georgia-Tennessee game, one of the big games that we'll talk a bit about later here, top 25 matchup in Knoxville. Also, in a couple of minutes, Matt Perkins joining us, talking to Wisconsin angle as the Badgers go down to Alabama to face on the Tide, a return game from last year when the Tide got the win up in Madison. Also on the way, Ben Royer talking UCLA. Not quite a dumpster fire yet, train wreck, but, we're concerned. The signs are there. This could get real ugly real fast. We'll talk a little UCLA. Also, Cory Diaz here to talk LSU ahead of the Tigers taking on a very determined Florida team after they were embarrassed at home by USF last week. So again, busy show coming up. Quick headlines for you before we get started. Week 2 in the NFL kicking off last night in Green Bay, led by Jordan Love and a Micah Parsons-fueled defense. The Packers just dominating the Commanders 27-18. Love throwing for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs running for 84 yards on 23 carries. The defense had 4 sacks as well, just harassed Jaden Daniels all night. Washington should have known it would be a long night as they have not won at Lambeau Field since 1986. Yeah, Reagan was in office. The one negative for Green Bay, star wideout Jaden Reed fracturing a collarbone. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. The Commanders, by the way, losing running back Austin Eckler to what is feared to be a torn Achilles. Tough news there for the veteran running back. In San Francisco, the 49ers will be without star quarterback Brock Purdy for a few weeks. He's dealing with a turf toe injury. Will miss expected between 2 and 5 weeks of action. Not good for the Niners. In the W, final game of the regular season last night, the big game was the Aces taking on the Sparks. A'ja Wilson, 23 points, 19 rebounds, and her final bid for a 4th MVP crown. Boy, she has been awesome in the second half. Jewel Lloyd, 21 points. Las Vegas made a single-game WNBA record, 22 three-pointers to get their 16th consecutive win, 103-75 over LA. And with the win, the Aces secured the 2 seed in the playoffs. They'll face Seattle in round 1 on Sunday to begin the 3-game series. Other winners on the final night, the Lynx and Liberty both winning. New York, as we mentioned yesterday, facing Phoenix in the first round. Minnesota will take on the 8th seed expansion Golden State Valkyries on Sunday as their opening round opponent. By the way, Minnesota, 34 wins. That's a franchise record for a season. Also tied Las Vegas for the most in league history. On the diamond, don't look now, but there is a dead heat atop the AL West. The resurgent Seattle Mariners got a Henry Ford pitch hit sac fly to score the winning run on a 7-6 12-inning victory over the Angels on Thursday. Seattle now very quietly 6 wins in a row. Houston shut out by the AL East leading Blue Jays 6-0. Kevin Gausman pitching a 2-hitter for his 4th complete game of his career. Davis Schneider homered and drove in 2 runs for the Jays. As, boy, it has just been. In fact, Gausman threw the first complete game in the major league since Baltimore's Trevor Rogers on August 1st. That is just a lost art. Doesn't happen anymore. 27th complete game of the season, 1 shy of last year's total. Let's give that some perspective now on how the game has changed. The late, great Bob Gibson back in 1968 had one of the greatest seasons for a pitcher ever. Gibson, in 68 by himself, threw 28 complete games that season with an ERA of 1.12 to go on with 22 wins. And again, in the entire Major League Baseball this season so far, 27 complete games. There you go. Yankees, by the way, avoided a sweep by the Tigers with a 9-3 win in the Bronx. Aaron Judge hitting 2 home runs to tie Hall of Famer Joe DiMaggio for 4th place in Yankees history.
Little college football now. Matt Perkins, good friend of the show, has had him on before with Badger 24/7, also the Believe in Badgers podcast, joining us once again to talk Wisconsin football. Hey, first off, Matt, I know we've talked before. You're a big Bills fan. Are you still on cloud 9 after Sunday night?
I'm still in disbelief that it all happened. I'm so glad I didn't turn it off. I was after the Derrick Henry touchdown to go up 40-25, I was like, oh man, maybe I should just go to bed early. But, as someone who was raised on the Bills in the 90s, one of my first memories that I have is Scott Norwood, wide right. What's the phrase? You gotta believe. And so I stuck it out, and Josh Allen shouted out all of those who stuck around and said, hey, you just got to believe in us. And I'm glad I was one of those, because that was as exciting a finish to a football game as you're going to see.
Yeah. And the NBC execs like patting themselves on the back. See, this is why we scheduled this game for week one. Absolutely. It was great. I'm not a Ravens fan nor a Bills fan, but I love the theater, love the drama. To me, it's like, okay, I had said I wasn't going to watch a lot of NFL this year, and now that's probably not going to happen. I mean, we have a new, easy chair. I'm becoming my uncle now. The old, with watching from the laptop in my lap, although he didn't have that back then. He had transistor radios, but I digress. Here to talk Wisconsin football, 2-0 start. Big test this week, going down to Alabama. The return game after the tie came up to Madison last year.
Yeah, it is obviously a very big one. Wisconsin, I don't even know if they've ever played in Tuscaloosa before. In my 35, 40 years of following Wisconsin football, they've played Alabama in Dallas. That was a fun game. What was that, about a decade ago or so, give or take? Then the game in Madison last year, now down in Tuscaloosa. But for the third year in a row, Wisconsin's starting quarterback is gone out injured. Last year, Tyler Van Dyke went down in the Alabama game in the first quarter, and that was a huge moment for the team. And that was sort of the beginning of the end for last year's team. This year, however, the backup quarter that they brought in actually has starting experience. So Danny O'Neill, who was the starter as a true freshman at San Diego State last year, what came in as the backup behind Billy Edwards Jr., the Maryland transfer for Wisconsin. Billy Edwards Jr. goes down in the opener against Miami of Ohio. Danny O'Neill steps in, looks a little shaky against Miami. Obviously, wasn't expecting to be in with the starters, wasn't getting starter reps, but that was a Thursday night game. And so he had 10 days to get ready to be the starter against Middle Tennessee State. He came out and looked very confident against the Blue Raiders. In fact, he set the Wisconsin record for most passing yards in first start for a Wisconsin quarterback ever last week against the Blue Raiders, and played with a lot of confidence, a lot of moxie. And even when the team was struggling in the first half to really move the ball, score points, you could see the demeanor of him around the huddle, around the players. He never got down. Last year's Wisconsin team, the year before that Wisconsin team, when things were going right, everyone was sulking. Everyone had their heads down. It was like, oh, here we go again. Not with Danny O'Neill. He has a different mindset and a different skill set that Wisconsin hasn't seen. And as much as Badger fans want Billy Edwards Jr. to come back and be successful, in my opinion, you have to start Danny O'Neill right now. If for nothing else, then you don't want Billy Edwards to be re-injured again heading into Big Ten play.
Mm-hmm. That's my next question is, what is Edwards' status and what are the chances of his return? How's that look?
Coach Fickle has been pretty tight-lipped about the situation.
Sure he has. Yeah.
So I don't have any super duper deep sources. Like, my sources are decent. My sources, I don't have Coach Fick as a source. So I can't come out there and say, I know exactly what they're thinking. I imagine that it is going to go to O'Neill this week. I imagine that he is going to be the starter this weekend, and that Edwards will come back for Big Ten play. Okay. That is my personal prognostication. Take it with, a mountain of salt.
Okay.
But I think that I also just think O'Neill gives them the best chance to win this weekend, because Wisconsin's offensive line has struggled in their first two games.
Wow.
The opener, new left tackle Davis Heinzen, who is a Central Michigan transfer in the summer portal, really got destroyed. He could not stop the speed rush. He was getting just beat all night. And so from game one to game two, they had one offensive lineman start in the same spot. That's left guard Joe Brunner.
Wow.
Benched Heinzen, moved a 3-year starter right tackle Riley Mahlman from right tackle to left tackle, where he's never played a college snap. Jake Renfro, the center, was out with an injury. Insert 6-year senior Kerry Kadonko made his first start. And Emerson Mandel, who started at right guard in the opener, moved out to right tackle, a position he might be actually a little bit more natural at. He actually looked better at right tackle than he did right guard. And then redshirt freshman Colin Carberly steps in to make his first collegiate start at right guard. You could see that there were definitely some communication issues, especially in the first half. They weren't getting a consistent push, but they did hold up relatively well in pass protection, which was the issue against Miami of Ohio.
Okay. So a couple of wins, Miami of Ohio, Middle Tennessee, Alabama this week, then Big Ten play starts, and you're saying you think possibly Edwards is back, then we'll see what happens. It's a schedule that look, I know the SEC teams, absolutely, some are playing 6-ranked teams in 7 weeks, and I get that. But I look at the schedule for Wisconsin, and there's nothing easy about this. I mean, Alabama's 19th in the country. Some believe they still will wind up being a top 10 caliber team when it's all said and done. Michigan's on the schedule, number 1, Ohio State, number 4, Oregon, Indiana, Illinois,
and a Minnesota team who I don't like giving compliments to, but they look pretty darn good themselves this year.
There you go. Yeah. So it's one of those that, when you talk about gauntlets, look, right now, the Big Ten, 3 teams in the top 5 and Illinois at 9 and Indiana's still there. Michigan's still there. It's not like, we're getting to the point again, we talked about it, where, the SEC has been dominant for the, past 15, 20 years, right? I mean, it just is what it is. But you feel like right now the Big Ten, back-to-back national champs, NIL has kind of leveled the playing field in terms of spending money. Not saying it's completely even. I don't know if it'll ever be even, but they can spend more money. The point I'm trying to get to is that for a team like Wisconsin, that's right outside that cusp of the upper echelon in 2025. You've got to be consistent. You got to stay healthy. You've got to get some wins and find some places to get wins and get those shocking wins to be able to climb back up again where you were before.
Yeah, coming into the season, the Athletic did their Big Ten schedule tiers, and they had Wisconsin in tier to themselves as the hardest schedule in the conference. Depending on the publication that you look at, they were ranked somewhere between 1 and 5 in the toughest schedules in the country this year. So, especially Luke Fickell in his 3rd year, key year in Madison, going up against this schedule, he could have an improved team and have a worse record, just because this schedule is so much tougher. Now, the one thing that I think has been heartening for this team has been a big improvement in the front 7 of the defense. The defensive line in 2024 got absolutely gashed in the run game, just completely gashed in the run game. You look at that Iowa game where they ran like 300 yards against Wisconsin, and they just didn't have the bodies. They didn't have the scheme fit, or something was going on there where their run fits just weren't there. Like, they were giving up 5, 10, 15 yards all the time on the ground. That has completely come down. They've had a couple really impactful transfers on the defensive line. Parker Peterson from Tulane, JVR Suggs from LSU. Those two have both looked very, very good in their first 2 appearances for Wisconsin. But one of the biggest impactful players has been Mason Reiger, who had to sit out all last year with injury issues. He's come in and been a gigantic spark to this team on the edge, a team that had like no sacks last year. I think they were dead last in the Big Ten in sacks last year. Through 2 games, they've already got 8 sacks as a team. I think that's more than I think they had 14 the entirety of last year. And so Reiger, a rejuvenated Daryl Peterson, who is one of the senior leaders on this team, they're really starting to get pressure from the edge. Sebastian Cheeks, a UNC transfer from 2 seasons ago, didn't get a lot of run last year, has come in as a starter this year and has looked outstanding. And then true freshman Nick Clayton, in a limited amount of snaps, he is going to be the next great Wisconsin pass rusher. He's got some TJ Watt to his game. He's long. He's lanky. He's like 6'4", 6'5", 230, and has a really great first step. And so I'm interested to see if they're going to continue to get him into the rotation more and more, because he was one of the highest rated recruits in the 2025 class for Wisconsin. And he's actually one of 4 true freshmen who are getting a fair bit of run for this team, which is really impressive. They got a couple linebackers, Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa, who are sort of the second team inside linebacking duo. And then true freshman receiver Eugene Hilton has had a couple flashes, the son of T.Y. Hilton. And he is someone who the staff is extremely high on and haven't been able to keep off the field because he's been so good since he stepped foot in Madison.
Wow, that is impressive, and it's going to take players like that to kind of get this back to where it was before. We're used to Wisconsin football being over the past couple of decades, a quarter century. So at Alabama coming up. By the way, I love when we have Power 4 conference teams play each other in the non-conference. I know the SEC is now mandated. Big Ten, except for Indiana, does it anyway, pretty much. So I love this. Crimson Tide coming in. Look, they've had the big blowout win in the money game last week, but look, I mean, there were a lot of things to work on, obviously, in the loss down in Tallahassee to open the season. How do the Badgers attack the Crimson Tide on Saturday?
That's a darn good question. I think that what they're going to try to do the most is assuming it's Danny O'Neal, get the pocket moving a little bit for him. He's very mobile. He is a more than willing runner, but with, considering how thin they are at quarterback right now, they probably don't want to be doing too many designed runs for him. But I expect them, with Jeff Grimes' system that he has brought in this season, completely threw out Phil Longo's attempt at the air raid, which was doomed from the beginning in Madison. I love Coach Longo as a person. He's one of the nicest, kindest people I've ever met. His system just didn't work in Madison. It just simply did not. And that's okay. But Jeff Grimes is bringing pro-style power football back to Wisconsin. They've got a fullback again. We've seen a couple fullback dives. Wisconsin, if they are going to succeed in Alabama, is going to have a significant amount of ball control. They need to hold the ball, I think, at least 36 minutes in this game, time of possession wise, if they're going to have a chance, because we know that Alabama has the athletes of a different caliber than UW does, right? It's just a fact of life. When you play Alabama, when you play Georgia, when you play any of these big time SEC teams, they're going to have better athletes than you. And so in order to make the upset happen, let's face it, it's an upset. Wisconsin's a 20.5-point dog in this one. They're going to need to hold on to the ball, limit the amount of Alabama possessions. They can't turn the ball over. And they need, Preston Zachman stepped up at safety, 2 interceptions in the opener against Miami of Ohio. They're going to need a couple plays like that because, one of the things that they didn't do against Middle Tennessee State, and especially in the first half, which was concerning, they didn't turn them over. They weren't able to stop them super well. They actually got burned on a couple pass plays. And so it is going to be up to, especially I think All-American cornerback Ricardo Hallman is going to be matched up on Ryan Williams. And how is that battle going to play out? If they put Williams into the slot, do they have Hallman follow him into the slot, or do they go with Jameer Latimer, who is their starting nickel, covering him? Because, they haven't seen a receiver of this caliber in a long time, right? They didn't play Jeremiah Smith last year. They didn't play Ohio State last year. So it's gonna, it's tough to find guys who can cover like that. And so it's gonna take a lot for them to do it. If they're going to do it, it's going to be ball control. It's going to be the offensive line gelling and being able to actually run the ball. They have some really talented backs in sophomore Darian Dupree, redshirt freshman Dylan Jones. Those two guys are atop the depth chart. Were both big 4-star recruits in the 2024 class and can both be explosive playmakers in the backfield. Darian Dupree, a little bit more of sort of an all-purpose back, really good with his hands, great catching. Dylan Jones is just an athlete. He's got these long strides that he just accelerates so fast and is hard to catch in the open field. So it's going to be old school Wisconsin football if they win. Ball control and, forcing turnovers on defense and keeping everything in front of them. If they start giving up these big plays and have to come from behind, it's over. Yeah,
it'll be a long night. Wisconsin at number 19, Alabama. Matt Perkins, always good to talk with you. The Believe in Badgers podcast, also Badgers at 24/7, and proud member of Bill's Mafia as well. Matt, good for you. Good to join you. Thanks again for your insights, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a great time to be here with you, Larry. I appreciate you tons, and anytime you need me, I'm here for you.
Okay, we'll be reaching out again. Good luck on Saturday. Matt Perkins.
Thank you.
When he gets talking Badgers football, Wisconsin at Alabama. We've got more Sports IQ on the way. Keep it here.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
We continue now with college football, and boy, the start to the season, there are a lot of teams that could say this was what we had in mind with the first couple of weeks. But boy, UCLA probably takes the cake right now among power conference teams. Benjamin Royer joining us. He is a UCLA contributor for the Orange County Register. Benjamin, good to have you here. Fair to say, yeah, 0-2 start. They're in Westwood. They're in the Rose Bowl. Not at all what we thought we were going to see from this program.
Yeah, it's definitely been, I wouldn't say an unexpected start, but definitely a start where the nation is looking at you and they can't stop looking at you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it starts with getting Nico Iamaleava into the program. Everyone's super excited. Whether you're someone out in Tennessee just watching UCLA because Nico is there, or you're just someone who loves college football and knows this is a big storyline. Regardless, whether you're in a Big Ten or you're a former Pac-12 fan watching UCLA, everyone is looking at UCLA because of Nico. And this is as poor of a start as you could probably imagine. It's one thing to lose to Utah, but then to lose to UNLV in the Mountain West, a team that hadn't beat a Big Ten team since the early 2000s. That's not what you want to see 2 games in. And then the question starts, where are the rest of the wins? UNLV was one of those, in quotations, wins. So where are the other wins? And they're harder to find now. And the question is, can this team get better? They might have already hit rock bottom.
Yeah, it's I thought, to your point, like you said, with Utah, well, Kyle Whittingham's is a good coach. It's a program you're familiar with, then okay. I mean, but boy, like you said, I look around, the Bruins are being doubled up in scoring. I mean, it is. Where do you start with this team? Where do you start to kind of say, okay, let's make a Gantt chart of what we have to do to kind of get this program back to where we'd like it to be? Where do you start now in fixing this?
We talked to the defensive coordinator, Akaika Malloy, yesterday. He's a former Washington guy. Players love him. I mean, he's built a really great defense last year. At this point last year, they were in a really similar position. They were 3 games without a sack. And then Carson Schwarzenegger shows up, who ends up being one of the better defensive players in the NCAA, 2nd-round pick from the Cleveland Browns. He had yet to start a game for UCLA at all in his entire career at this point last year. So I think they're hoping that someone shows up on defense, a new player forces his way into the rotation. But at the end of the day, I think it all starts with first half play. I mean, if you look at the 2 first halves, the first one against Utah and the against UNLV, man, they started the games possibly the worst possible ways. Both teams score right away against UCLA. They struggle to respond, and then they score again, and they score again. And then UCLA's playing on the back foot, forced to play a more pass-based offense when offensive coordinator Tino Sunseri, who came in from Indiana, made it very clear he wanted to have a balanced, elusive approach. You can't be so balanced and elusive when they forced your hand so early. So I think they really want to show up on first half defense. And I think that starts with the pass rush, which has been really not so active so far through 2 games.
Yeah. New Mexico here Friday night. You do start Big Ten play at Northwestern next week. Look, the Wildcats have not looked good either. So at least there's that. But boy, in the schedule, you've got the current number 1 Ohio State and the current number 2 Penn State on your schedule. I mean, it's just, you mentioned, I want to get back over to Nico as well. The big change last spring, Nico comes in, Aguilar leaves and replaces, they just swap quarterbacks with Tennessee. How is he adjusted right now with only really 4 months to be with this system, this playbook to kind of learn the offense?
I think all throughout fall camp, they went off campus for a fall camp. They were all staying in hotels. And I think that was part of that was like, let's try and force these people to be around each other a lot. I mean, it's not just Nico, 57 new players on this UCLA team, which of course is a transfer portal thing. I'm sure many teams in the NCAA are going through a very similar situation. However, it's like, how do you force chemistry? It's difficult. And a lot of it's just repetition. Early in the fall, they were like, Nico is building the chemistry with his receivers. They're going out on the side, playing catch to the side, even when it's not practice time. They're going and making an effort to become as close as teammates as possible. And you'll see it like when they were coming off the bus in Costa Mesa, where the fall camp was, Quasi Gilmer, who's wide receiver 1 pretty much, was right next to Nico every single time. They were talking, they were walking together. But in recent weeks, it's like you're watching and you go, maybe he does need a few weeks to settle in. Maybe he did need that spring camp to settle in with his players, these guys where he's the captain, he's the leader on this team, and he's one of the least tenured players on the team.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. We spoke to Coach Deshaun Foster earlier this week. I mean, he's the first time he kind of had a caveat of like, it's not easy to mesh in, so quickly. I think that comes with having a not so great start. It's easier to kind of point at things that do need to be worked on. But I think Nico has settled in pretty well. I mean, it's easy to remember. He is a Southern California guy. So this is not like it's that far from home. There's no homesickness. His brother is on the team. His brother's his roommate. So I think he has settled in well, but I think it's hard to settle in also when you're 0-2 and now the pressure is on you. And it's not just the pressure of needing to win because you're UCLA, which to be fair, compared to other football programs is not as much of a pressure. Winning at UCLA does not mean winning at USC. They're two different levels of winning.
Sure.
But you don't only have the internal pressure, but now you also have the external social media and national college football pressure because you're one of the 5 quarterbacks that everyone knows the name of. And that can't be easy either. So I think he's settled in well. It's just hard. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for a college age guy to have so many different versions of pressure on him 2 games into the season.
Yeah, that's fair. We've been through this. You mentioned Coach Foster last year, the 1-5 start. Now here we are 0-2. All of a sudden, New Mexico is a must win. I don't know if I've ever said those words in September, but here we are. If you can't get this win, or if you win here and lose at Northwestern, a 1-3 start after a 1-5 start, how hot is his seat now out there? And the pressure for him to have a strong second half as he did last year.
So I think the pressure is high on, it's very high for him. However, in my eyes, I think his seat is still relatively safe. I think athletic director Martin Jarman thinks very highly of Deshaun Foster. He's only ever spoken very highly of him. Very quick to defend Deshaun Foster, especially after the rough start last year. I remember after one of the wins last year, Deshaun Foster was sitting up at the podium and he said, he said Martin hired the right guy. He said that about himself. So I think there is a sense of confidence and support system from the AD's office already. However, external fan pressure, the donors, how are you going to make those big NIL plays if no one's giving money to your program because you can't win? Those things I think are much more prevalent. And I think there's like a sneaking suspicion of let's hope NIL settles down a little bit so that we don't have to worry about that as much. However, when in the last 5 years has NIL ever settled down? It's only ever gone more and more chaotic. Faster paced. I know they're now talking about just having one window, and that might help a little bit. But I think his seat is still relatively safe. But you lose to New Mexico. I mean, at that point, I would say the games on the schedule that you would go, oh yeah, that's probably a win. It's New Mexico, Northwestern, and Maryland. I mean, if you lose to New Mexico, what hope is there for a win against Northwestern or Maryland? Because New Mexico probably is similar to what they'll see against Northwestern, and Maryland's probably better than those two teams. But it's like, if you can't beat New Mexico at home, who are you beating?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, that's where really, as we were talking about the teams all this week, we kept looking back going, okay, how did that happen? What are we doing? So it's crazy. Listen, we appreciate your time on this, Benjamin. And, it's an interesting season ahead. We look forward to your good writing for the Register there. And, hopefully we're not having a conversation about a coaching change later on this year, but it's college football. Who knows? We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Benjamin Royer, once again, he's a UCLA contributor for the Orange County Register. He catches stuff. I'll be sure to give him a follow online as well. UCLA taking on New Mexico 0-2. They're at home. Got to win this game. It's on BTN, by the way, Friday night at 10 o'clock start on there. Okay, we've got more college football coming up.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
More college football as we're getting ready here for the weekend. Tony Barnhart now in his 50th year of covering college football. And folks, he is putting together a book due out late next year on SEC memories. Listen, write it down right now. We'll have him on again to remind you when the book is out. But this will be a must-have for the sports fan in your life. We've known Tony for years, and we're thrilled he joins us once again here on the show. Tony, welcome back to Sports IQ. Sounds like you're keeping busy right now.
It is busy. Matter of fact, we're driving up to Knoxville tomorrow to get ready for Georgia, Tennessee. Going to be stopping on the way to see Commissioner Kramer, former SEC Commissioner Roy Kramer, who lives in that area. Going to visit with him. So yeah, it's busy, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's a great time of year, and what a great game. So many changes in college football, but some things don't change, and one of them is the great rivalry with Georgia, Tennessee. UGA, they've gone out and they've won games, but it feels like that, maybe there's some other teams right now that appear sexier to voters. What's your assessment right now of the Bulldogs after the first couple of weeks?
Well, we just don't know. Okay, they played Marshall and they played Austin P, and that doesn't tell us a lot. They don't want us to know a lot.
Yeah.
This Saturday is the test. You play a good team on the road, which is always a great measuring stick, and so we will see. It's going to be, and Tennessee's gotten off to a good start, but their competition has been average at best. So we'll see, and that's why we play the games.
Yeah. George making the change at quarterback. Carson Beck is gone down to Miami. How has this offense changed that? Again, like you said, you don't want to give too much away before you get into SEC play and some of the more challenging games. But how has this offense changed with him out of the mix?
I think it's a different offense, obviously. And Gunner Stockton is a guy who he's got the support of his teammates. He runs the ball very well. And I told somebody yesterday, the bottom line is you're not going to ask Gunner Stockton to throw for 300 yards a game. That's not his game. That's not what he's going to do for you. And so if Georgia can play their game, and their game is going to be to run the ball, play action pass, play good defense. I told somebody yesterday, if the game's in the 20s, Georgia can win. If the game's in the 30s, Georgia can't win.
Mm-hmm. So this is an offense right now, not as wide open, not as prolific. It's a season it's going to be relying on the Bulldog defense more than the offense.
Yeah, I think that's right. And again, it'll rely on the defense, which is better. And you can't make mistakes. You can't give them cheap points. And if you can avoid doing that, you'll have a chance to win every game you play.
Yeah, I asked about Gunner because I know that coming out of the spring, Georgia was sniffing around with some other quarterbacks to see who else they could bring into the portal after the spring. And so that kind of lends the question that maybe he didn't do enough in spring ball to overwhelm the coaches that they felt they needed to go look somewhere else. But he is QB1 right now, and I guess maybe he's worked over the summer and maybe improved his game right now. The coach is more comfortable, or do they change their game plan to fit his strengths?
Well, first of all, you do adopt the game plan and take his strengths. That's number one. Also, keep in mind that the coaches will, in my mind, with very few exceptions, they're not going to name a starting quarterback after spring practice. Okay, they're not going to do it. They're going to let the competition go into the fall, and that way all your quarterbacks are engaged. So that I think that was by design. I thought Gunner Stockton's the starting quarterback from the beginning of spring practice on.
You guys, Georgia has just a brutal schedule, as so many teams in the SEC do. 4 of the next 5 games are against ranked teams, and then the other one's against Kentucky, which played a competitive game, although they lost to Ole Miss last week. We get a treat. This is one thing I do love about the new SEC without divisions, that we get a chance to see Georgia, Alabama in the regular season, which we would rarely, maybe once, maybe twice a decade, we would see before. So I think this is awesome in terms of Alabama coming into Sanford Stadium there, and I don't want to look past the Tennessee game, but it's a game I've had on my circle on my calendar since midsummer, of one of those must see games that we have to watch coming up here in September.
No question. And as the new scheduling model is going to go into effect for 2026, we do believe it's going to be, the fans are going to like it a lot more, and you'll get to play. Well, here's the summary is this. And under the new scheduling model, if you're a player, you stay for 4 years, you will play everybody in the conference, both home and away. And I think that's a tremendous thing. Texas A&M joined the league in 2012. Georgia has yet to go to College Station, Texas. And that's what was bad with so the new scheduling model, fans will really like.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's good, like you said, I mean, with the massive TV deal, right? I mean, we want those matchups. We want to see the Aggies play the Bulldogs and et cetera. Were you
Sure.
surprised? Were you surprised that the commissioner went to the 9-game model after fighting it for so many years?
Not really, because we understand in an age where you've got a salary cap in college football, $20.5 million, you got to come up with that money somewhere. And they were leaving a lot of money on the table, probably about $5 million per school to add that ninth conference game. So no, not really.
Yeah, yeah. 11 teams in the top 25 right now in the AP top 25. How deep is this conference? I mean, it is.
It's as deep as I've seen it now. What I have said is that there's going to what I've said, there's going to be a number of conference. It's deeper than it's been, guys, because there are a lot more good teams that can beat you. I'm not sure there's a great team in the SEC, but there's a whole lot of really good ones. And oh, by the way, Mississippi State, who's picked to finish dead last, upset Arizona State last week, the defending Big 12 champions. So it's as deep as I've seen it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So Georgia, Tennessee on Saturday. Look into your crystal ball, and how's this game going to play out on Saturday, in your opinion?
What I took what I said just a few minutes ago is that if the game is in the 20s, Georgia has a real chance to win on the road. If the game is in the 30s, I don't see Georgia winning that game.
Yeah. Okay. Tony Barnhart will let you get back to getting ready to travel to Knoxville and working on this book, 50 Years of Covering College Football. Tony, it's always a real treat to talk with you. Take care.
All right, guys. Take care.
Let's continue the conversation now with the other big game in the SEC. It is Florida taking on LSU, and joining us here once again on the show, Cory Diaz. He's the reporter for LSU Athletics for USA Today Network. Cory, good to talk with you again. Listen, we were saying before, as we talked to you a few weeks ago, before the season, the feeling in Baton Rouge was that this could be the best team that Coach Kelly has had since he's been there with the Bayou Bengals. And right now, 2 games in, it looks like that. They were, what an outstanding win they got at Clemson, and now a chance to play a very determined and a good Florida team that feels like they've got something to prove.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've had some conversations with some fans after the season opening win at Clemson, and you could make the argument that might have been the biggest win in Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU so far. Now, the only other game that I thought like the consensus of the couple of handfuls of fans that I spoke with was the overtime win against Alabama 3 years ago. But that game was at home. It was Death Valley on a Saturday night. Those are games where, although it was a top 2-3 team coming in, it's still LSU, Death Valley, Saturday night. Folks have been drinking since 9 a.m. The whole thing, right? So I think that was the biggest win of his tenure so far. And it's weird because they followed that up last week with a what I would classify as a pedestrian performance against a Louisiana Tech team. And that's no disrespect to Louisiana Tech, because I do think at their level, they're probably one of the best teams in Conference USA this season. I think defensively, for sure. I don't think there's a better defensive unit that I've seen in that league. And in terms of the Group of 5 level too, one of the best defenses I've seen. Mm-hmm. As good as the opening win was, did they follow that up with something where I think there's more questions now heading into this Florida game than there was coming out of the Clemson game. So, but look, it's kind of like the player said earlier this week when we talked to him. Is there a lot for them to clean up and improve on? For sure, but they're 2-0 while they're doing it. And I think for the players, for the coaching staff, for the fan base, you want to be not necessarily satisfied with what you've done through the first 2 games, but still be undefeated on the year.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the big thing too. And we've discussed that with you and other people who cover the SEC, that, every year under Kelly, they've gone out and played a great Power 4 opponent, but you lost. And so you're starting 0-1, and you've got to rebuild the psyche if you can. And to your point now, well, you're 2-0 going into a game against a team that thought they'd be 2-0. But really, you could say they laid an egg. I mean, Gators made a lot of mistakes in that home loss to USF, but we're also seeing USF, the Bulls, maybe a better team than what we thought they were, and they could be the team taking that group of 5 slot when it gets to be college football playoff time.
Yeah, right now, I had, we ran a college football playoff predictions file in the preseason, and my pick from the G5 lot was Tulane to make the playoff this year. But I tell you, I mean, South Florida, look, they literally ran Boise State out of the stadium in the opening week of the year, and that's just something that we haven't seen happen to Boise State in a very long time. And that's with them playing a team that I guess you could make the argument that's on the same level as them. I'm sure we've seen P4 schools, beat Boise about 3 or 4 touchdowns in the last 20 years, but ever since that Statue of Liberty play in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma, like we just have not seen Boise lose the way that they did to South Florida in the opener. Yeah. And then South Florida follows that up with going to Gainesville and holding Florida to 16 points. Florida just could not, once they got on the in plus territory on South Florida side of the 50, they it's their offense just forgot how to play football or something. I don't know, but when we talked to LSU players earlier this week, they are very cognizant of the fact that this is going to be a pissed off Florida team coming to town on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Larry, it's a team that they feel like is coming in and they have a lot to prove. Yeah. The defensive guys that we spoke with this week they were incredibly complimentary of DJ Lagway. And from what I saw from him against LSU in Gainesville last year, I mean, I back up what they say. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Arm talent is out of the world. He usually is, I think, in terms of quarterback IQ, I've always thought he's had one of the higher quarterback IQs in this league. He rarely puts ball in danger. He's really good with his reads. He has a very good understanding of that offense. And he's a guy that he also knows when to use his legs. And I think that's a skill that, I think a lot of people have become enamored with Arch Manning and his ability to, use his legs to help the team win. Like DJ does it too, but DJ does it when he recognizes it's the right time to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of a forgotten skill with some quarterbacks these days. And so, this game, I think I saw the line was at 8.5 points, which I think is just for an SEC game, for a rivalry SEC game, 8.5 points, I believe is a ludicrous point line. Yeah. I'm not a betting guy, but if I was, I would take those 8.5 of Florida because that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think that, to your point, I was talking with, we had Kevin Brockway of the Gainesville Sun on, I know a friend of yours, colleague of yours a couple of days ago, and he was saying the same thing that, maybe a little bit of Florida that, this is a program that while they've got great history has not had recent success. Maybe the lofty ranking got to their heads a little bit, got a little caught up, smelled themselves. And so, yeah, like you said, a very determined, like you said, team coming into this. What do you feel LSU has to do to secure this win against, again, a team that, on paper, number 3 team versus unranked, but we all know that ain't the case here. What do the Tigers have to do to get this win on Saturday?
Yeah, for me, Larry, I think it's trusting the offensive line. And what I mean by that is, their starting senior Braylon Moore is dealing with an ankle sprain right now. He's listed as questionable for the game Saturday night. Whether or not Braylon is able to play, whether or not it's him or DJ Chester starting at center and playing that position for LSU all night long, they got to lean on the run game. They have to try to, as best they can, establish some form of an attack on the ground, because that is going to in turn help Garrett Nussmeier in the passing attack against, look, this Florida team is just like, every Florida team since Steve Spurrier was there. Like they've got athletic, skilled guys on the defensive back end, and I mean, we saw it last year, when these two teams played, in Gainesville last year. They can easily bait you into making the wrong decision, based on their coverages. And, and that's something that Garrett, against Louisiana Tech last week struggled with some. That first interception that he threw on the first drive of the game, he got baited into a bad throw, and he made a bad throw, and Louisiana Tech made him pay for it. So they've got to run the ball with Caden Durham, with Harlem Berry, with Juwan Johnson, and maybe even Caleb Jackson if he sees some snaps. Like they've just got to, even if it's just 2-3 yards at a time, it's to basically telling Florida, look, we're not afraid of your defensive front just because we have a lot of inexperienced and youthful guys up front offensively. We're still going to run this football. And if we get 2 or 3 yards at a time, we're okay with that. If we can flip the field with our punter, we're okay with that. And that was something that, Brian Kelly, when we spoke with him on Monday, he talked about. He was not fond of, the offense going away from running the football against Louisiana Tech too. So although they have, Louisiana Tech runs a 3-3-5, defense, which is not something that LSU sees very often. So it was a little bit, they talked about how hard it was for them to sort of map out a game plan against a defense that they don't really see very often. But there has to be a willingness and a desire and a priority to run the football for LSU. If they're going to win this game, if they don't run the ball 30 times, then that means this game was a shootout. You know what I mean? So and I think honestly for LSU right now, I don't know if they want to win games 35-33. I think they want to win games, 27-17, something under that. I don't think they want to get into shootouts right now.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Hey, Cory, we will leave it there. We're envious because your seat will be better than ours. But we look forward to seeing your reporting afterwards and talk with you again later on, man. Have a great weekend.
You guys too. Appreciate you.
All right. Appreciate it. Once again, Cory Diaz joining us. He's the LSU athletics reporter for the USA Today Network. It is number 3 LSU at home against Florida, 7:30 Eastern time kickoff. That is on ABC. Okay. We'll talk more college football coming up next right here on the Sports IQ.
Hey, loser.
Leave me alone.
When a child shares hurtful comments online, that's bullying. Visit erasebullying.ca to learn how to help your child stand up to cyberbullying.
Appreciate Tony Barnhart coming in again. Producer Tony has his mic on. And Tony, a big weekend. We can't wait. Been talking about it all week long. How about the other contest that we didn't talk about in that last segment? Notre Dame, Texas A&M. We talked with Andrew Monaco earlier this week, the voice of the Aggies. If you're Notre Dame and your redshirt freshman quarterback, CJ Carr, hey, talk about starting off being thrown to the wolves. First 2 games against Miami and then at home against Texas A&M.
Yeah, you got to play 2 ranked teams right out of the gate. You've never started a college football game before, the first one in Miami. At least this one is at home. Hopefully the offensive lines had some extra time to gel, maybe get some things figured out. I think there's a couple keys for this game. One, whoever wins that battle along the line of scrimmage is going to have a serious leg up. 2, can Notre Dame establish Jeremiah Love and get him more touches than he had against Miami? He did not touch the ball enough, if you're a Notre Dame fan, in that ball game. He needs to touch the ball at least 20 times a game, and it better be at least 15 to 17 of those be flat-out rushing attempts and not little swing passes. Just get him going, because once that train gets going downhill, it's tough to stop. A&M's got better people along the outside in their wideouts so that offense could be a little more explosive than it was in the past. I think if this is a low-scoring game, it benefits Notre Dame. If it's a shootout, it definitely benefits Texas A&M.
Yeah, kind of the same that Tony Barnhart was saying about Georgia, Tennessee. I love this matchup. This is one, Tennessee is back again. Josh Heupel has resurrected this program, and this is fun. In Georgia again, like he was saying, you played a couple of the easy money games early on. The first big test to see, are they still the Georgia team that they've been for the past half decade? Yeah,
and I think they're going to bear that out this weekend. I just believe that this team is very well coached. Gunner Stockton, I think, is going to be a really, really strong quarterback for Georgia. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. Look, having that running quarterback option is a real asset in today's college game, and I think Georgia has that now. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if Georgia just takes another hobnail boot to Tennessee and wins this game by at least 10 points.
And then the other side on LSU and Florida, we've gotten, we talked with Corey, got his opinion on this game. Kevin Brockway, the Florida side. I want to hear your side. I know you're not a big Brian Kelly fan. So can you put that aside and tell me what you think is going to happen in this game?
LSU being home is a huge advantage. We all know that the Louisiana version of Death Valley is a very intimidating place to play. As Kevin pointed out, something is not right with DJ Lagway. Something health-wise is different than it was at this point last year when he was just starting to come into his own. They need a healthy DJ Lagway in order to be successful. I don't see them getting it done down there in Louisiana. This Tigers team looks to be the real deal. Nussmeier had a solid game week 1. He wasn't that great in week 2, but he didn't have to be. They weren't playing anybody, right? So now they've got another test with Florida. Gators backs are up against the wall because guess what? Another loss here. Boy, are the boo birds going to start coming out, and people are going to be looking at Coach Napier and the amount of goodwill he earns. He's earned at the end of last year. He will have spent it if they lose this game. The goodwill from that will be totally used up. So now it means you better finish really strong to keep your job. I just don't see them getting it done Saturday in Baton Rouge. I think the Tigers win this one. And I think if DJ Lagway is not 100% healthy, it gets ugly in a hurry.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And you're right. It's scary to think that we really, we were all applauding Coach Napier here in the offseason. They turned things around. It was a gauntlet last year. They made it through, not only making it to a bowl game. I mean, and all kinds of positive, good juju coming into this season. And to spend all that in the first month is something we did not see coming. Tough game for them. Tony, appreciate you. We appreciate our editor, Josh Ewing, as well. And we appreciate everyone coming by. All of our guests here. Big football weekend. Don't forget, you can catch us again. We're on YouTube. We are everywhere you find your podcast. Want to say hello next week to KLIN in Lincoln, Nebraska, joining us next week. We can't wait for you guys to come on board. It's a Sports IQ. Make it a fantastic weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.